So to kick off, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. If you're a returning guest, welcome back. If you are new to the webinar series, we're glad that you could join us. Today, we are going to talk about stepping up from QuickBooks with Sage Intacct Construction. If you have any questions as we go through today's presentation, please place them in the Q&A chat. I am going to be monitoring that, and we do have time set aside to answer any questions that you might have. Also, probably the most common asked question that we get is, will there be a recording? There will. It will be sent out after the presentation today. All right, a quick look at the agenda for today. First, we're going to provide a brief introduction to today's presenter and CompuData before we dive into today's topic and the Sage Intacct Construction walkthrough. Lastly, again, we've built in time to answer any questions you might have, so please do put those in the Q&A chat for answer at the end of the presentation. For those that don't know me, Justin Van Druff, I am a director here at CompuData. I am joined by Kayla Hall, who will be leading today's webinar. Kayla is our Sage Intacct Consulting Director. She has extensive experience managing and implementing Sage Intacct. I always like to introduce her as a recovering user of legacy accounting systems, and now she helps our clients analyze their internal processes, develop efficiencies, and automate their workflows. A little bit about CompuData. We're a woman-owned business with 50 years experience providing business technology solutions for the SMB space. Along with construction accounting, which we're going to talk about today, we are technology experts. So we specialize in optimizing complex operational issues through the use of technology so our clients can run their business more efficiently. So how do you know what we're about to tell you is true? Well, we've been in the Sage ecosystem for the past 35 years, right? We are a diamond tier partner with over 30 years experience migrating and implementing Sage solutions. Our team of certified Sage Intacct Construction consultants that work with Kayla have the expertise and resources and methodologies that you need to support. CompuData is recognized by Sage year over year as a top performing Sage Intacct partner. This bullet point here says 2022. And we've already met the criteria for 2023. So we will be on that list again next year for our success in helping clients leverage the power of Sage Intacct to improve their business. Now, with that brief company overview out of the way, I'm going to hand it over to Kayla to go through the demo agenda and the walkthrough of the software. Kayla?
Yep. Thanks, Justin. So we've outlined an agenda here. These are really the key components of Intacct where a lot of our clients that are migrating from QuickBooks have found value. So it's just a couple of key components of Intacct. If we had longer in today's webinar, we could show you more functionality, but we're going to be going over enhanced reporting and dashboards, multi-entity consolidations, seamless closing processes, the job dimensions, AP automation, and then advanced invoicing as well. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to stop my video, go ahead and share my screen. All right, can you guys see my screen here?
Yes,
Justin, can you see it? Okay, perfect. So I'd like to start with the dashboards because you can actually configure an Intacct to land on a dashboard as soon as a user logs in. We can have very tailored dashboards specific to what that user is doing in the system. And I'll just be going over some of the key components of a dashboard. So first we have the dimension filters up above. So if you don't know, Intacct is dimension based. We have each transaction is tagged with a series of different dimensions and basically combined with a base GL account. So I'll go into that a little bit more in a bit, but first we have the dimension filters up top. So this would include dates. Right now I have departments, which also include dimension groups. Locations, again, that includes dimension groups as well. So we can actually use the attributes of the dimensions to create groupings. And then I have the project here as well. So you can see down below, these are actual projects, where up above, we've got groups like project managers or project types like residential, single family, commercial. So you can create dashboards and filter based off of those groupings, like I mentioned. If I wanted to filter for different dimensions than the three that I have there, it's very easy. I would just hit the settings button under the filters here. Maybe I want to look at cost code and cost type. I can easily just change those settings, save, and it will update my filter, the dimensions that are filtered up above. If I wanted to limit the permissions to dashboards, so for example, if you wanted to give project managers access to their own dashboards, then we can limit and restrict access to dashboards as well. And then once that loads, we'll go ahead and take a look at, we've got our performance cards here. So again, these are just snapshots of different things. We've got our commitments, contract values, things like project estimates, which might not be something that you are tracking today on the GL, but we are able to track using user-defined dimensions or user-defined books in Intacct. And anything that you can see, there's visual indicators either comparing to a budget or prior period, like you can see here. But we can actually drill into these. So if we wanted to look at our commitment totals, because maybe we don't know if that's true, we can drill into it. It'll take us to a little P&L here, and then it will take us to our general ledger report. With the general ledger report, this is basically a Bible for transactions in Intacct. There's quite a bit that we can do with just the general ledger report here. So we can, it's already filtered for that specific account group. So those specific GL accounts, we can change the date. If we needed to, we can actually filter for a variety of different dimensions as well as other dimension attributes, like I mentioned earlier with those dimension groups. We can also filter if we don't want to see across the columns all of these dimensions. Maybe we just want to see the job, then I can change that. We've got a lot of formatting options. Without going into too much detail, I'll just go ahead and reset this report. And any report that we see in Intacct, we can actually export to Excel, CSV, text file, PDF. We can email it from the system. So there's a lot of different ways that we can export this data to analyze it as well. But if we wanted to continue to drill down, it'll actually take us to the transaction in the system. So the dashboards give you greater visibility. You can look and drill down again into those transactions. If we want to edit them or view them, if you have the right permissions to do so, then you can make changes if you needed to. You can track retainage. This is a purchasing, subcontract order. You can also go in and look at the audit trail. So this gives you visibility on who created it and when, and if there's any changes, what those changes were before and after fields as well. So there's just a lot of detail here. And as you can see, this is a standard UI in Intacct. So we have all of our entries across, in the lines here. And if we wanted to bring up more dimensions up top, we can rearrange the entries screen or the entries layout. And these can include, on the entries or even in the header information, we can add custom fields, custom date fields. We can auto populate things. So there's a lot we can do using the API that make a lot of efficiencies in the system. Once I've made changes, say we have the incorrect count or maybe the incorrect dimensions, I can post. And then I can go back to my dashboard and all I have to do is refresh my browser, and this is all real time. So again, the ability to drill down and really get into the detail and the weeds of the transactions that make up the totals that are included in reports and in performance cards, that's what Intacct provides. We also have a couple of financial reports here. So this is a project overview. This gives you the idea of a dimension in the rows, and this can be for a specific dimension group. So example would be single family. Right now we have it filtered for only single family projects. We can, create a project overview that breaks them out by single family, commercial, by using those dimension groups. Again, if I wanted to drill down into the contracts, I have the ability to do that. And it takes me that general ledger report. I can create calculations for profit margin, percent complete. I can drill into the project profit margin as well, over under billings. So just a lot of detail within this one report. And you can see, we're not just tracking accrual activity, but activity like commitments and contracts and project estimates as well. And then this is another report here, financial report. Project profitability. On the left, we have our different account groups. So like this is all the P&L accounts. And then across the top, we have the projects. Again, this is filtered for single family. So if we wanted to filter for a particular report, you'd be able to see all that broken out. We've also got smart links. So this one here is connected to the CompuData website. So very easy. All you have to do is put in your, the URL link, and you can link to outsource software system. So if you have a payroll system that you need to integrate to, or estimating software, it's very easy to add those to the dashboards. We've also got financial graphs, which you can see here, a lot of different options. Intacct does come out with about 15 out of the box financial graphs for you to utilize, but then you can customize from there. So it kind of acts as its own Power BI, in which that you can add to the dashboards or run on their own. And then we also have what's called interactive custom report writer. So we've got a couple of financial reports or job cost reports over here. These are completely customizable. So depending on the detail, if you need detail or just a standard WIP report, the ICRW reports really are able to recreate Excel-like templates. So we can create pivot tables, we can create Excel-like formulas. We can, create drill down capability as well in the ICRW reports. We can create as of date filters. So there's quite a bit that we can accomplish with the ICRW reports as well as visual indicators here. So moving on from the dashboards, I did want to drill in, take some time to look at some of the financial reports that we have. One of my favorites to show, again, we looked at that profit and loss by project. But just to show how easy it is and how we can really consolidate multi-entity environments based off of these locations. So again, I'm going to go ahead and run this profit and loss by location. So you can see that we have our P&L, and then across the top in the columns, we've got all of our different entities. And then we have a consolidated view here at the end, which is the all locations. Again, we can drill down into anything in blue if we wanted to expand. And again, this is all based off of how we've developed these. This is an out-of-the-box report in Intacct, but we could customize these if you need. We can show the GL account and the account name. We can email them directly from here. We can export to Excel, print to PDF, etc. But if we go back into the design, we can actually go into the columns here, and we can change this just to show you how easy it is. So right now it's expanded by locations. If I wanted to change this to, say, departments, just with the click of a button, we're analyzing this now on a department level, where we can see, okay, this specific report has operations detail, and then it has no departments. You can see what hasn't been tagged with a department at all, and then a consolidated view for all departments here as well. And then I just have a couple other samples. So here is an inter-entity reconciliation global. We've got multiple entities or multiple countries, and we have the due to, due from reports. But this also shows the ability to create those conditional formatting, so color coding based off the dollar amounts. Again, we can create the filters. So if we want to rerun it, we can prompt for different types of dimension filters based off of the needs of your client or of what you need. We also have revenue by segment. So again, this is using a dimension group, and then this is using a different dimension group. So this might be location, and this might be class. And then across the top, we've got also filtering by specific item groups. So we can really slice and dice the data based off of what you want to see, either by GL account or account group is what they're called in Intacct, or by dimension or dimension group. So quite a bit of options there. Going back into our financial reports, Intacct does provide us out of the box with about 40 financial reports. Again, we can run these within the browser. We can export to CSV, PDF, Excel, or we can actually schedule these. So if I was to schedule this one here, I can go ahead and I could put in a department or location group filter if needed. I could also say, okay, starting today, we're actually going to run this after or on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, yearly, or just following the general ledger close. So maybe you have a C-level team of executives that you need to distribute reports for. We can follow general ledger close. We can send them a number of emails. There's no limit to the amount of emails that we can enter here. This will send the reports or a report package to those individuals, and they do not need Intacct access to receive those. We can also store an Intacct so that we can grab them at a later time. So if we're grouping multiple reports together and we just want to store it so that we can pull it at a later date, we can do that. We can also send them to like a share file or SharePoint site as well. So that is something that makes it very efficient. I won't be going into the interactive custom reports, but that is also an advanced reporting tool that a lot of clients see a lot of value in. So if you guys want to follow up with any type of private customized demo, be happy to show you that as well, but just based off the time we have today. Going to be going now into the multi-entity consolidations. So I know I showed you a couple of reports that show the intercompany. What Intacct has is the ability to automate your inter-entity mapping. So based off of the inter-entity account mapping here, we have a relationship between each entity, and we have a receivable account or a payable account that we can trigger based off that relationship. This is the basic inter-entity mapping. Going back into another test environment that I have, or demo environment, we also have the inter-entity account mapping, the advanced. So here's where we have entity A, which is entity 100. This is the due from, and then this is the due to for that entity A. And then we have a specific receivables and payable inter-entity account for entity B. So we have a whole mapping here that helps the system know what GL accounts to trigger when this transaction is between entity A and entity B. So just to show you an example of that, when we're creating a journal entry, and I'm just going to go into a draft one that I have. I believe it was an inter-entity receivable. Here. All right, we'll just go ahead and create one. So if I'm creating a new journal entry, I'm going to do it to the general journal here. We'll just put in a description. We'll just select GL account here. Couple GL accounts, rent. We're going to go ahead and we're going to tag a location. So this is going to be the developer location. And the next row, I'm going to go ahead and tag the general construction location. So then within the inter-entity account mapping, if I select a source entity here, say I select developer, and I put in debit and credit here, I'll go ahead and submit this. Then what it's going to do is it's going to trigger that intercompany posting effect. So now if I go look at that general journal here, I can view this. And not only do I have my initial posting, but I have the inter-entity entry that triggered based off of that mapping. So it automates that intercompany relationship and those posting effects. In addition to the general journal being able to trigger that based off of a source entity that's tagged, we can also trigger this by using AP bills that are tagged to a specific location. So this one here, this was tagged to developer, but it was paid with a checking account that was for TCG, which is another entity that we have, Timberline Construction Group. So the checking account has a location of TCG. The transaction has a transaction tagged to developer location. So the posting details, as you can see, the developer, we've offset accounts payable, and we posted to cost of sales equipment, 5,000. Then if we go look at the posted payments for this project here, we'll see that once that payment was created, it also triggered an inter-entity journal. So this one here, based off of that mapping, it posted an inter-entity receivable and an inter-entity payable account. So that's all automated and Intacct. So it just helps, reconcile and keep track of the intercompany posting effects. We also have the ability to create bill back templates, meaning once we create an AR invoice, if a vendor or customer is associated with an entity, then we can trigger a corresponding AP bill at the same time. So that's another option where we can default, okay, here's our invoice GL account, here's our bill GL account, and that trigger would happen automatically. Going into our close process, we have a couple options. So we can close on the general ledger. Obviously, we can open and close. It's very easy. If you do have a multi-entity environment, then you can actually filter for what entity you're closing, or you can filter for an entity group as well. So if you wanted to close 5 or 6 entities at a time, but you want to keep open the other 3, you have that option. Or if we left it blank, it would close all of the entities at the same time. You basically close the end of the period that you want to close through. So you just select it, and then you would close your books. I'll go ahead and do that. Now, when I go to open my general ledger, I have the option to also open my subledgers. So if I wanted to also open my subledgers, or maybe only some of them, I could do that. I would go ahead and open them through, December 2021. Go ahead. Now they've been opened. Closing the period just eliminates people being able to post within that period. So as long as the system is open, it's very easy to edit transactions in a prior period. So the system does not limit you in any way to make changes other than closing the period. And then if I wanted to close, maybe I wasn't ready to close the GL, but I wanted to close AP, I have the option to close that subledger independently. I have the option to close AR independently. Again, right here, subledger. Time and expense, I can close that separately, as well as what's the other one? Cash management as well. So we can, very easy to close those. There's even dashboard components specifically to manage where you're closed through. If you do have a multi-entity environment and you're tracking a lot of different moving parts and a lot of different entities, then we can, have visibility in a dashboard for that. So a lot of good stuff there. Switching over to AP automation. So this demo environment here. So Intacct does have the ability where you can upload a PDF, JPEG, TIFF, or PNG file. So if you were to browse, and we'll just go ahead and add, got a FedEx invoice example, we'll upload that, we'll create bills. You can choose the entity in which you're uploading this for. We'll go ahead and create the bill. As you use it more and more, the system uses AI to recognize, dimensions that you've done in the past. It also, OCR technology scans the invoice template in order to try to track the dimensions and trigger, the vendor, the amount, so that it's minimizing the data entry for you. And essentially you would be able to see what invoices were that, came through bill upload. You could just filter for that here. You can see the import exceptions. We can also have vendors email invoices directly in the system, and they would show up the same way, and the source would be an email. So under the AP configuration, if we have the email services enabled, then it basically gives you a specific email address for each entity, and you could create a forwarding. If you have like an AP email address where your vendors are sending in invoices, then we can map those or send, forward those over to the ones that Intacct's generated for you, and those would also get brought into the system automatically. There is the ability to also attach POs with the AP automation, so we can bring it in from a commitment, subcontract commitment, or purchase order commitment as well. All righty, going back over here, I'm going to go ahead and get into my entity, general construction. I'm going to go quickly over the job dimensions, our cost code catalog, and then we'll go ahead and generate an invoice. So going into the jobs module here, we can see there's no limit to the amount of characters in the job ID, or I think it's pretty extensive. There's about 30 characters there. We can, set up a document sequence for job IDs, or we can just leave it open. So here's a couple examples of some different job IDs that we have in this entity. We can create parent-child hierarchy relationships, meaning this would be like a sub-phase or a work package or just a phase of a project. So we can create the relationship like this. We can also roll up job transactions to invoice with parent, so that we can invoice at the top level, but we can actually track costs separately. So again, this is the UI of the project setup, a lot of different attributes. Again, any of these attributes we can use to create dimension groups, so the job groupings. We have our project managers that we can assign. We've got quite a bit. I'm just going to go ahead and go over the job summary really quickly, which shows you different snapshots of subcontract costs, equipment costs, other costs, billings, project profit margin. We'd also have a snapshot of our estimates and our purchasing commitments as well. So an example of one that actually has data should be this one here. So here you can see all of the commitments that have been tagged to this project. Same with the estimates. You can see the line estimates or how many estimates are attached to this project. Job summary, this would give you subcontract costs, billings to date, project profit margin, total PO commitments, non-billable expenses. So just a quick snapshot of your project status with, just within the job setup window. And then we can go into the cost codes. So Intacct utilizes a cost code catalog. So basically the standard cost code list that you have would be available in the catalog. You can filter very easily in here. So if we wanted to look at work breakdown structure D, for example, we could filter for D, and then all of that would, only those cost codes would show up. So most of our clients, they actually don't filter for the cost codes, but you can just select all, and then all would be available on your jobs. Another option, when you bring in your project estimate, you can actually, with one import, set up your project work breakdown structure. So you can set up your project, your cost codes, your cost types, all within one import at the same time that you're importing your estimate. So if you need to, pick and choose between certain ones, we can use the filters, either the production unit description here. For example, if I wanted to say just want to add general conditions at this point, then there's 27 there that I can add with a quick click of a button. But what's nice about these catalogs is it actually includes the appropriate cost types. So if we were to look at concrete, then we can go in here, view this cost type, and we can see that these 3 cost types are associated with this cost code. So when we add these to the job, that the cost code gets added, but also the cost type. So material, sub, labor, equipment, any of the other ones, right? Those are the only ones available with this cost code. We can create that relationship. So very easy to create your project costs or your project dimensions in order to allocate costs to those different project dimensions. So going into job contracts. So here is a project. We have a couple different use cases for a lot of different project contract types. I'm actually going to be going over the T&M contract here. And we also have a line for fixed fee or progress billing in this example as well. So we would set up a job contract, a line for time and material. Within the line for time and material, we actually have the ability to assign a rate table. With the rate tables, we can tag any dimension in Intacct with either a market percent or a labor rate. So here's a timesheet rate entry. If we show details, you can see all of the dimensions across Intacct. We've got local codes, trade codes, class codes, employee positions, time types. Again, any one of these combinations can create a specific labor rate or a markup percent. So if we consolidate timesheets, purchasing, same thing. We have all of the dimensions. We can create a markup percent, a unit price rate, AP, GL, credit card, employee expenses. All of these different modules, we can create different markups for, really giving us a lot of flexibility in creating T&M billings. So going back into my contract line, and then the way that you would assign cost codes, that basically any billable transaction that hits these cost codes would come through and be mapped automatically to the T&M line. If we don't have the cost code on the T&M line, then it wouldn't come through as a billable transaction, and it would just be assumed that it's going to be part of that progress bill line item. So once you set the job contract up, you would go in to generate an invoice. Again, we're going to be doing a job contract invoice. We'll go ahead and select that there. We'll bill through the date. You can also create filters when you're creating T&M reports. So you can do it based off of job activity, item activity, employee dimensions, managers, job managers. So there's a lot of different ways that we can filter what we're creating or previewing. And then you can also manage what you're displaying within the preview. You can sort by specific things. You can drag and drop based off of what you want to see. So it's really nice to be able to customize that. Once I preview it, this is going to show me all of the billable transactions for my T&M line as well as my progress bill line. So here's the job contract line. This one was the progress bill. I can input, okay, I'm 50% complete this period. If you had any stored materials, $50. If we wanted to withhold 10% retainage, it's going to do that. If we want to bill the retainage at the same time so that we don't have to go and do another workflow to bill the retainage, we could do that here as well. So we could say, okay, 10%. We're going to bill, or we're going to build that retainage amount at the same time as we're withholding that retainage. So we do have that ability. And then if we go down, we can see, okay, here's our timesheet entries, our billable timesheet entries. They're already mapped to job contract line ID because the cost code was included in that job contract setup. We also have AP expenses and purchasing expenses. You can see these ones aren't mapped. So we would have to decide, okay, what contract line for T&M do these need to be mapped to? Because there's no cost code from these transactions that map it automatically. From there, you would just go ahead and create an invoice. Oh, and we forgot to put in a current application number. So those of you that use AIA billing, we do have the ability to create templates for that. Oh, and I'm going to uncheck these because I didn't assign a job contract line. So we can customize any of the printed doc templates that we have in the system. Right now, the order entry project contract invoice is mapped to an AIA format. So if I go in here, I'll actually show this one. This one's an AIA. You can print that. But we can really customize these based off of what you want to see on an invoice template. So again, this is pulling all of that detail. It also has a continuation sheet here. But what's nice about using the new project contract functionality out of Intacct is if I go back into my project contracts, I can actually visually see what's been invoiced, any retainage released invoices that have been generated, and then payments as well. So if I go back to one that historically we have a lot of transactions with, you can see we've got all of our invoices, which we can drill down into. We've got retainage released invoices, which we can also drill into, and then a payments as well. So we can actually drill into the payments. We can see exactly when they were paid. So if a project manager has access to Intacct, they basically have access to all of the activity within that project and that project contract. So that about wraps up the presentation. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and pass it back over to you, Justin.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks, thanks, Kayla. So you definitely went over a lot of the points that we see from existing clients on why they're making the move from QuickBooks. A lot of the work that they're doing outside, outside the system. Intacct really makes it a lot easier. So we went through the multi-entity consolidation capabilities, the do tos, do froms, the advanced invoicing, the customized workflows. So I appreciate you kind of giving us that walkthrough. As we get to the really kind of the questions here, the one that we always get is about the eliminations, right? So the one question we have is, can Intacct automatically post elimination entries?
Yes, it can. So whether you're using an add-on called dynamic allocations, or you actually have a specific entity for eliminations, then that company mapping can actually trigger that automation for you. Okay.
And then I know you touched on this during the demo. I don't know if there's something specific that somebody has in mind, but the question we have is, can Intacct withhold retainage in AP and AR?
Yeah, so I showed the ability to withhold in AR, but absolutely we can withhold retainage on the AP side as well. And that can come from, like I showed at the beginning, the subcontract. If we wanted to put a retainage amount on the subcontract, then when we generate that or convert that to an AP bill, then that retainage follows and would be withheld, and then you can release at a later date. Yep. Perfect.
So those are only questions that we have so far. So I will give everybody a minute to put their questions in the Q&A. In there, and we'll go and kind of go to the next slide here, and we'll wrap this up here. We are a little bit over, so I appreciate everyone hanging in there with us. We've included some additional resources for you to review. We have some really great informative blogs written by our consulting experts on our website, and you should definitely check those out. Also, jump on our LinkedIn page and follow the CompuData page so you don't miss any of the new blogs when they're released. As we wrap up, I wanted to thank everyone for joining. If you have any additional questions, or if you want to see something that's personalized to your specific workflows, just give us a shout. Send us an email at inquire@compudata.com, or you can give us a call on our 800 number there on the screen. I am looking to see if there's any last minute questions coming through. It doesn't appear that we have anything, so we solved all the world's problems here in 34 minutes. So Kayla, I appreciate you sharing your expertise with everybody. That'll conclude today's presentation. We hope you found it informative. Be sure to let us know if there's any other topics you want us to cover in the future, and reach out if you have anything based on the content that we provided today. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.